Good morning and welcome everyone to today's session on Essence of Different Programming Language being hosted by Bajaj Institute of Technology, Varda in association with Department of Computer Engineering, BIT, Varda. This is the second day of webinar series. Yesterday, we all have been through the programming C and C++ by our expert presenters, Dr. Sagar Kumar Badiye and Professor Amol Jumre. Today, we'll witness Java and Python programming by our eminent speakers in the domain of expertise. A recorded version of this webinar series will be available on the individual presenters channel and official webpage of BIT Varda. I request all the participants to fill the feedback form for all the session in order to access the e-certificate. Those who have joined us late, we welcome you all once again. We from BIT Varda request you all to like our channels. Please feel free to type your comments in the live chat. Without much ado, let's welcome our first presenter of the second day webinar series, Professor Abhishek Kinhekar, sir. Sir is currently working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Computer Engineering, BIT Varda, with an overall experience of more than 10 years in teaching. Former, he was an employee of Tata Consultancy Services. He is an experienced regional remote sensing center person from RRSSC, ISRO, ISRO on live project of real-time data integration for process modeling. Sir has 8 peer-reviewed papers being published in various national and international journals. Sir is a member of professional societies like ISTE and IEI. Sir has delivered expert lectures on programming techniques, data structures, software design patterns, and etc. So we are very glad to have you with us today for this webinar session. Without much ado, I would request Professor Abhishek Kinhekar, sir, to please carry on with the presentation. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, and good morning, everybody. So let us just start our today's session. I hope everybody have gone through the previous sessions given by Dr. Sagar Kumar Badiye and Professor Amol Jumre. So in today's session, we will be discussing something about Java programming language, its features, its advanced version, and essence for database management system. So let us just start. As the quote says, knowledge isn't power until it's applied. So we will be trying to apply our knowledge, what we learned, for development of one simple mini project. Let us just start. What I require before I start this session is the audience should be familiar with the basic programming techniques of C or any other programming language. The basic programming techniques might include condition statements, then looping, recursion, variable declaration, and all those stuffs. So basics of how to program in C or in any other programming language will do. Then basics of object-oriented programming concept, preferably by C++, are required. Basic concept means I want everybody to be familiar with basic concepts of classes, objects, how objects are created, how methods are being written, how methods are called, how objects communicate between the two. That is the complete essence of object-oriented programming language, which was very well explained yesterday by our eminent professor. Is curious portion of our webinar, that how we create a GUIs and how we tag, how we connect those GUIs to databases. So for the GUI development, we require a bit of aesthetic sense, so that how that GUI's UX and UI aspects can be handled. The topics to be covered in this webinar will be the basic program structure of Java. Then we will be discussing basic features of Java, which were skipped by our former or previous member, Professor Jumde, that is platform independency, garbage collection, multi-threaded application, and exception handling. After this discussion, we will be seeing the prerequisites of Java database connectivity. What exactly we require before we start connecting our Java with our existing databases. And in last portion, we will be developing a simple mini project for connecting our database to our GUI. And lastly, we will be closing on the note when to use Java. So let us just start. I hope everybody is comfortable with program structure of Java. What exactly a program structure of Java contains? Everybody knows a Java is a very widely used programming language. A programming language like Java can be implemented in a source file. A source file which has a Java extension is simply a collection of various classes. Various classes can have various methods and statements present in it. A simple source file can have multiple number of classes, and a class can have multiple number of methods. The association between the two is based on the relationship between the classes. There might be various different types of relationship. There might be a composition, there might be an aggregation, there might be an inheritance, is a relationship, has a relationship, and whatnot. All these things give a basic structure to the complete program in Java. This basic structure of program can be very well identified or can be very well explained through a graphical media. That graphical media is called as UML, that is Unified Modeling Language. Basically, what is UML? UML is a graphical representation of how your object-oriented program works. In that UML, you have various different class diagrams, object diagram, associativity diagrams, and all those things, which frankly tells you how the classes, members of classes, and objects of those classes interact between the two to give final outcome. So let us just come back to the topic. Every source file that is with the Java extension holds various class definitions. Multiple class definitions can be there. A simple class file which can be given by a dot class extension that can have one or more methods. Every method which, of course, the functions which we call in basic C and C++ programming, those functions are called as methods in Java. And every method, as we all know, can contain various different declarations, initialization, instructions, and whatnot. The technique of writing methods is very similar to that of technique of writing function in C and C++. Let us just see how the basic main program looks like. This is how the first program looks like. Let us just discuss only first three aspects of it. The first line says public class my first tab. Second line says public static void main in bracket string array, that square bracket represents an array, an args. And what does that main contain? That main contains a simple executable statement, system.out.print I rule. Let us just start discussing everything from the scratch. First line, public class my first tab. This line represents the declaration of your class. The second line, public static void main string args. This is how we declare and use main method in a class. Just like we know in C and C++, the execution starts from main method. Likewise in Java as well, the execution starts from main method. And the third line, system.out.print I rule, that is the single executable statement present in the main method. So whenever main method is executed, this single statement will be executed and we will be seeing the output accordingly. The last two curly braces are for closing of the block. First curly brace is for the closing of main block and second curly brace is for closing of your class. That is my first tab. Now let us just see word by word what exactly those things do. First thing is public. That is a scope variable or a scope identifier. Public means everybody who has a right for that class, they can access it. Second thing is a class. That means we are working with a class. We are giving a definition to the class. That is why we are writing a keyword class over there. This my first app is the name of the class. See, the name of the class, we can give anything, but the good practices or the naming convention in Java says whenever we write the class, we have to give the appropriate weightage to it. If we are writing a class for some operation, then the name of that operation should be given to the class rather than giving any arbitrary random name. The second nomenclature says if you are writing a class, the first letter of that class should always be capital. If your class name contains multiple words, then every first letter of subsequent word should be capital. So that is the reason a class name my first tab, which is a collection of three different words, and every word is first letter is made as capital. So this is sort of naming convention, a good practice. Then a curly brace or a curly bracket indicates opening of a class or a scope of a class. Then second thing, again, public means everybody can have an access to it. Static. Static basically means we will be creating a static method after this. Why static keyword is there? Because we don't want any other class to instantiate it. We want this method to be instantiated on its own. So that is why we have made this method as static. Void is a return type. Just like in C or C++, every method has to be written with its return type. So what is the return type of main? It should be void. So that is the reason we have written void over there. Any method can have various different return types. It can be boolean, it can be double, it can be float, and whatnot. Here we have taken the return type of main as void. Then main is the name of this method. The execution of every Java program will start from this main method. Then opening braces and closing braces, round brackets, indicate that we will be passing some arguments to it. Just like in C, we have seen command line arguments. In Java, we pass these arguments. What is these arguments? This argument is nothing but a string array by the name args. Args is a username. It is not at all mandatory that you have to write args only at every time. What is mandatory is you have to write string and array, that is square bracket open and close. The next curly bracket indicates opening brace of the method. The last line is terminated by a semicolon. Every executable statement in Java should terminate with a semicolon. Then we have I rule, which is present in double quotes. Why? Because it is a string. I want to display this string onto the console. So I am writing double quotes I rule. That double quote or that string is passed as a parameter to a method called as print. We cannot use any method in object-oriented programming directly, as everybody knows it. So to access any method, we require an object of it. So out.print will be calling a print method, which in turn will be printing I rule on the console. But out, we have not declared any object of by the name out. So we will be declaring and we will be using the object with its class name, along with its class name. So that is the reason we write system.out.print. Every time whenever we want to display some message on a console or on a screen, we tend to follow this pattern only, system.out.print. Mind well, the system's first letter capital S is first S is capital. So this is a class name, out is an object, and print is a method, as we have discussed. Then we have two curly brackets closing. That is, first closing is of main method and second closing is of your first tab, that is class closing method. So this is how a complete program is written in Java. Now on the very first glimpse, it looks something of very tedious or a very difficult job, but this job is also made more comfortable by use of various IDEs. We have various IDEs present with it. We have your TextPad, basically a simple notepad will do, but we have various TextPad, Eclipse, and NetBeans IDE present with us. So even if we start our coding it with NetBeans IDE, let us just see how exactly code looks like. Let me just do this thing. We will simply create a new method, a new project. We will create a Java project, Java application. Next, let us give a simple name for this application. Let us just give as test2. We know that this is a class name, so first letter should be made capital. So this is my test2, and I will simply be creating a project. So when I click on a finish, it will be starting to create a project, and a test2 project will be cleared. In IDE, the first comment is for the license holder, license, and all those things. This package test2 tells you that in the test2 class is present in test2 package, and some sample code has been given to you. That is the public definition of class test2 and public static void main string args, that is definition and declaration of your main method, and you can write your code present over here. So you simply need to write system.out.println over here, and you are ready to go with the programming. So even if this thing looks a bit tedious, this is not. Let us just proceed. After this thing, mostly when we work with Java, we normally intend to see various different buzzwords. We have been told that Java is robust, Java is secure, Java is object oriented, it has various different features associated with it and whatnot. So let us just see what are the buzzwords which more frequently or most frequently we encounter and how to deal with it. We know it is an object oriented language. We know it is a platform independent, how, which we are going to see in a bit. We know it is a robust. We know, or we have been told that it is a dynamic in nature. It has its own auto garbage collection mechanism. It has its own exception handling mechanism. It is supposed to be multi-threaded. It is architecturally neutral. It is secure. It is distributed and whatnot. All these buzzwords we normally see while coding or while reading and or while writing some Java applications. Most of these features, I say now, most of these features have been already covered, like object orientation, security, robustness are already covered. Which what I am interested in are basic 4 features which are very much core of this programming language. That is platform independency, garbage collection, exception handling, and multi-threaded application. But before that, let us just see the extremely important feature and very useful feature which very seldomly explained by other members. That is, Java has a very rich, Java has very rich library support. But what exactly I do mean by Java has a very rich library support is the programming language Java has a complete set of classes and set of methods pre-written over there. We simply need to know which class we need to implement and which method we do need to call for. If we know which class we need to implement and what operations we have to perform, most of the time, 90% of the time, it is the case that most of the data or most of the methods are already present with Java. We simply need to restructure our program. Basically, we have to become an architect of our design, and then we need to develop a program with the help of library. So you don't need to start from scratch every time if you are working with Java. So this rich library support, of course, while taking the last program or last project, we will be seeing how rich library support we implement. That we will be discussing in the later portion of this discussion. So let us just start with the basic features which discriminates Java from other programming languages. And which are they? They are first, platform independent, then auto garbage collection, multi-threaded application, and exception handling. So let us just start with platform independence. Java is said to be a platform independent programming language. And why is that so? Because before this session, we have seen essence of two programming languages, that is C and C++. These two programming languages are in a way platform dependent. That means you require a compiler to convert your source program to machine understandable form, and then you execute that program. Java basically works in 3 steps rather than 2 steps. In step 1, we write our code by using an ID and generate a .java file. We call that file as a source file. After generating the .java file, we feed that file to a Java compiler. Normally, Java compiler file is found with Java C. The very simple implementation process of compiling a Java program is simply write in your DOS prompt mode Java C space filename.java. What does this Java C do? What does this JDK, Java Development Kit's compiler JDK do? It converts your source code to Java bytecode. This bytecode is completely platform independent. It can be implemented on a Linux platform, it can be implemented on a Windows platform, it can be implemented on Mac platform. So this bytecode is practically a conversion of your source code in independent form. And then this bytecode can be transferred over the internet to any type of platform, and you require JRE, that is Java Runtime Environment, for its execution. So when this bytecode is fed to JRE or Java Runtime environment, it converts that bytecode into machine like understandable form, and that machine understandable form will then in turn will be executed and you will be given an output. So this is the reason why Java is said to be platform independent. It can be written on some platform, it can be executed on some entirely different platform. So this feature makes it a very useful language for programmers as well as for for developers as well as for users. So this platform independency sets Java apart from various different programming languages. Let us just see what is the another feature which discriminates Java programming language from other programming languages, and that feature is called as garbage collection mechanism. Normally, garbage collection mechanism, typically speaking, the garbage collection mechanism of Java is supposed to be self-sustainable and most effective garbage collection mechanism. But before we start discussing about garbage collection mechanism or this automated garbage collection mechanism as it is said in books, let us just discuss what exactly a garbage is. We all know that Java or any programming language uses heap memory for its allocation of various different variables for classes and for whatnot. So this heap memory is quite limited. So if we go on allocating this heap memory over and over again without taking in care which thing is being used, which thing is not being used, so at some point of time our heap memory will run out. So if we want to avoid that thing, Java takes garbage collection mechanism in its own hand, and it identifies some things as a garbage and it collects them and reinitializes that heap memory to null values. That means if your object is created and not used, it will be treated as a garbage. If you have created multiple objects for a same thing, for a same instantiation, it will be again treated for a garbage. Likewise, various different definition for garbage is given. If you have created an object and made it null intentionally, of course, in a way, that is also supposed to be a garbage. That means you are creating an object, you are creating a copy of a program, copy of your class, and you are making it null. You are not using it. You are instantiating it, you are acquiring a memory for it, and you are not using it. So in a way, that is called as a garbage. What Java garbage collection mechanism do? It simply uses mark and sweep technique. That means after program execution, it marks the garbage, so-called quotes unquote, marks the garbage that is unallocated or reallocated or mostly multiple allocated memory, and which is not utilizable. It sweeps out that memory from the program and allocates it to heap. So this mechanism is known as basically garbage collection mechanism. So JVM based mechanism to obtain garbage heap from memory object. Java virtual machine conducts this mechanism or uses this mechanism to eliminate the uninitialized memory location or reinitialized memory locations. The garbage collection carried out by a thread is called as a garbage collector. Basically, we call it as a GC. What exactly is a thread? Thread is not entirely a process. Thread is simply a part of a process. This GC is a thread which is responsible for automated garbage collection. What does this thread do? This thread invokes a finalize method. This garbage collector has a finalize method present with it. This finalize method of that object, and it gives opportunity to perform any sort of custom cleanup is required. For example, if I create an object and intentionally made it a garbage, that is intentionally I made it null, then what will happen? After garbage collector starts it working, it will be calling finalize method with that object, and if that object is a garbage, finalize method will return its memory to memory heap. This is how garbage collection works automatically in background without giving headache to a developer. The most important point is programmers cannot force garbage collection in Java. Unfortunately, this thing is true. We will be seeing the actual implementation of how garbage collection cannot be forced. We'll see in a bit. The very last point is there are methods like system.gc and runtime.gc. Mark well, system is a class, runtime is also a class. So system.gc and runtime.gc, which are used to send requests to a garbage collection mechanism to JVM, they can be used to call finalize method as well. They will call finalize method. If you know object-oriented concepts well, you can override finalize method as well, so that you can give your own code to finalize method. You can see the execution of finalize method, but Again, let us go to previous point. We cannot force garbage collection in Java programming. Let us see what I meant to say. Let us just go to a code. Where is it? Garbage collection. I have garbage collection. Source package, garbage collection. This is the basic implementation of garbage collection. Here we have a class called garbage collection, and in that class we have opened our main method, and this garbage collection we have created an object. So garbage collection m equal to new garbage collection. It's simple declaration of an object. This is how you create an object in Java. Class name dot object name equal to new class name with parenthesis. Correct. So this object m I am intentionally using for my garbage collection purpose. By using this object, I am calling finalize method, m.finalize. I am calling it twice. And here I am overriding my finalize method to give my own code here in this line. Finalize method is overridden, and I am writing this code over here. That is system.out.println finalize method overridden. This is a simple dummy code which will indicate me that I have used finalize method once or twice or multiple times if I have used it. So if I execute line number 6, m.finalize, what will I see? I must see this finalize method. What if I used it second time? I second time must see finalize method. Done. Then I make m as null. What do you mean if I make m as null? I have allocated memory to m. I have created an object of garbage collection class by m. The memory is allocated to m, and now I am making it as null. That's in a way I am creating a garbage. Correct. Now after creating this garbage, I am calling system.gc. We have right now seen what is system.gc. It is a method which is used to invoke garbage collection mechanism. GC stands for garbage collection. And now lastly, this system.gc calls finalize method in turn, and then we will see how we see an output. Then system.out.println main completes, and then we will be closing the brace. Now let us just see what is the output of this thing, and then we will discuss how the garbage collection mechanism actually runs. What is expected that when you use a finalize method, the m which is only initialized here, the memory should be returned to heap. After you call gc, the finalize method should have been called and memory should be written. That means after system.gc is called, m should not be present over here. Correct. Now let us just see the output. What is output? First two times we see finalize method overridden, finalize method overridden. Correct. Then we have a call for system.gc. We don't see any output for it. And lastly, we see main completes. That means after garbage collection call, after call to a garbage collection method, which usually happens at the last execution of your last executable line in your program, still system.out.println statement, main complete statement is getting executed. What I mean to say is, even if we can call a gc method or finalize method by our own, mandatorily the garbage collection work we cannot enforce. The garbage collection will happen only after the execution of last executable line present in the program. That is the reason after main completes, we see again finalize method overridden. That means after execution of after the last lines execution in main, finalize method gets a call, and then finalize method by using mark and sweep or other mechanisms cleans the garbage, and then we are able to see how the garbage is collected. That is the reason we see the message finalize method overridden after main completes. So I hope this program proves you that we can call garbage collection method anytime, anywhere, any way we want, but we cannot enforce garbage collection mechanism manually. The garbage collection mechanism in Java is automatic, and it is implemented after the execution of last executable statement present in the program. So that is what I am emphasizing over here. Let us just go to the next portion. The next most important thing which we are going to discuss, which what should I say, discriminates Java from other programming language, is support for multi-threading. Now, as everybody knows, what is a process? A process is something which is being executed for generating some output, for processing and for generating some output. A thread is a lightweight sub-process of that smallest unit of processing. That means we can say simply a thread as a smallest part of your process. A process can have multiple threads running concurrently or simultaneously within it. You can create various processes. Let me give you some simple example. Let us just see. Let us just assume that I have a program which works on three different um, processes. The first is for sorting, the second process is for exception checking, and the third process is for some arithmetic operations. If I perform these processes one by one, I'll require much more of the time. But if I create threads of various different processes and implement multi-threading operation, I can concurrently or simultaneously implement all these things. So this feature, which enables user to implement multiple processes or multiple parts of processes simultaneously, is called as a multi-threading, and this is an excellent and very beautiful feature given to the developers by Java. This multi-threading enables user for what? It enables us to speed up the process. It enables us to have processing done concurrently, and it enables users for the faster response. Basically speaking, all these three things are dependent on each other. If a simple process is distributed in various different threads and implemented concurrently, the common sense tells you that the speed of execution will increase. And if speed of execution increase, the response time will get lowered and we will get a faster response out of it. So that is the very basic reason why multi-threading is used in Java programming. The multi-threading is given to us as a very beautiful operation, but there are various difficulties in multi-threading as well. Let me explain this thing to our students in their own perspective. Normally, most of the time, students have a complaint that a teacher has to teach only one subject for a semester, and we, being a student, have to learn 5 or 6 different subjects at a time. So that is what we call it as a multi-threading. Let us just see a problem of a student. What if students need to learn 6 subjects in a semester, in a course of a semester? What if students read first page then of first subject, then opens another book of second subject, reads another page, then opens a third book of third subject, reads another page, then opens a fourth book of another subject and reads, and simultaneously if he goes on doing this subject multi-threading, it will be difficult for him to understand a simple subject completely, thoroughly. So what exactly I mean to say is, multi-threading is simple if you have a strong scheduling mechanism present over here. If a student tries to solve a problem in first 15 minutes, in later 15 minutes he tries to read some theory, in next 15 minutes if he tries to write a code of some other programming language, in next 15 minutes if he comes back from the first subject and goes on ahead. So this thing will create a difficulty, this thing will create a dilemma. So if you have a strong mechanism of scheduling, multi-threading can become very simpler, but this concurrency can create various different difficulties at the time of multi-threading. There are various implementations where multi-threading is used. Your basic chatting applications can have multi-threading. Your various servers in which we have client servers, in which we have client server mechanisms, we use multi-threading. So likewise, we have various different applications wherein various different threads, various different applications can be done over here. Done. So this is the next part. We have seen platform independency, we have seen garbage collection, how these things differentiate your Java programming from others, and next is multi-threading. The next portion is exception handling. Let me just do this thing first. Okay. The next feature is called as, okay, but before we go on for that multi-threading, let us just see the life cycle of a thread, how thread life cycle is worked out. First thing is, we create a thread by using new keyword. So we create a new thread and initialize it. Now this thread can be started by using an interface called runnable. Interface runnable provides various different methods through which we run or we execute the complete thread. Now there are various stages where there are various steps through which we implement a runnable thread. Let us just assume those stages one by one. The first stage is, what if we want to make the thread and go to a wait state? If we give or if we execute a wait command or a wait method, the thread goes in wait state. And once a runnable thread goes in a wait state, it notifies all that, okay, I'm in a wait state and don't give me anything to execute. So this is how we implement a first step by calling a wait method. After executing a wait method, the thread goes in waiting state and it notifies other programming construct that, okay, this thread is in wait state. If we implement a sleep method, then our thread goes in timed waiting. Normally sleep method is given with time. So for how much amount of time you want your thread to wait and then regain its execution automatically. Mind well, there is a difference between first step and second step. In wait state, you have to mandatorily make that thread runnable by calling another function. But whereas in timed waiting, after the execution of given time, for say whatever time t you have given for its sleep, after that it goes on live automatically. It becomes runnable automatically. Again, when it goes in timed waiting state, it notifies all. The next step is for IO request and for synchronized statements. That means if more than one program construct uh, is called for a thread or requires a thread or shares some resources, we call it as a synchronized statements. Or if a thread issues an IO request, if it wants to access some driver or so, then in that case your thread goes in blocked state. And when your thread goes in blocked state, unless and until your IO is complete and you acquire a lock on interrupt, your thread cannot go in runnable. So after block state, the thread execution is stopped. Whatever IO request you have made or whatever synchronized statement you have given, that IO request driver mechanism that works after the execution of that external entity gets complete. It gives a message that, okay, my IO is complete. After IO complete message is given to a thread, then thread becomes runnable. That means if your runnable thread want to access IO, it gets blocked. After IO completes, it gets its own current status as runnable. So this is the third state. And in last state, if task completes, then thread goes in terminated state. There is no notification after termination state. If thread gets terminated there itself. It will not be notified to anybody. So this is how a thread lifecycle works at, from new to runnable, and from runnable to there are 4 different states. And for every state other than terminated, you can see that there is a handshake mechanism present over there. If you call wait, then it will be notifying that yes, I am in wait state. If you call sleep, it will be notifying for this amount of time I'll be in sleep. If you called as IO request, then it will be saying that yes, I am blocked, and until my IO gets completed, it will not become a runnable state, and lastly it will become terminated. So this is how multi-threading can be done. See, multi-threading can be very simple, very beautifully implemented if you are comfortable with the scheduling mechanisms present in Java. So I will request that before starting actual implementation of multi-threading mechanisms, let us just discuss something about, or let the discussion regarding scheduling mechanism, how various different concurrency mechanisms are there in Java, that should be discussed, that should be understood first, and then we should go on multi-threading mechanisms. The last thing, which is most important, is called as exception management. Basically speaking, whenever in a running program, when we do find an error, the execution of program stops there itself. We don't want that thing to be there in our complete Java code. Let us just assume, what if I have written 300 line, 400 line code in Java, and in 70th line or 75th line, I find an error. So even after that, rest of the program is bug free, error free. My execution stops at 70th line. Done. If I don't want that thing to be happen, if I want that, if there is an error at all, that error should be handled separately, and the rest execution of the program should go as a flow without any interruption. In that case, I use exception management technique. What is an exception management? A method which detects an error and throws an exception is, sorry, exception is basically a form of an error wherein we manage that type of error. That means we give a code to what if that error occurs. So what exactly exception management does? An exception management technique detects an error and throws an exception. That is, yes, okay, this point of time, this code is giving you an exception. This code might give you an error. What is the second step? The code that generates an error, that code we have to put in try block. Now, again, I know this thing is quite tedious if you work in theory. In the program which I'm going to conduct next, we are going to work with try block and its counterpart catch block. So let us just see that the try block is the portion of a try block contains that portion of a code wherein the probable error could be there. So if I say that I'm using an array and the array index might go out of bound, if or I'm using an arithmetic operation and there might be a case that division by zero error might occur. So in that case, that portion which might give an error, that has to be written in try block. The keyword throws tells the exception of a method. Every try block or the throws, keyword throws tells the exception, means whatever error you identified, throws keyword tells you about the exception or the error present in that method. That means there are various exceptions. Null pointer exception is there. There is array index out of bound exception. Then there is arithmetic exceptions are there. So there are various different type of exception. These throws keywords tells you about the exception of the type of exception of that method. And lastly, termination model of exception handling is by using a catch block. Now, what exactly catch block does is whatever throws an exception, catch block catches that exception and gives a code to it. Say for example, let us just assume in my 300 lines of code, if there is an error exception, let us just say exception now, there is an exception in 50th line. So 50th line will throw an exception. That thrown exception will be catched by catch block, and this catch block will give an remedial measure for it. Normally, most of the cases the remedial measure is given as system.out.println. We cannot process this exception, or check your code again, or arithmetic exception occur, or the type of exception, whatever that type of exception is, that is displayed in a simple textual manner, nothing else. But this exception management technique does not stop the flow of your execution. That means even if there is an error in your complete logic, the execution flow does not get hampered. The program gets executed. Of course, you will not get the desired outcome if there is a dependency present over there, but the program is executed up to the end portion. Exception handler processes the error, and the error is considered caught and handled in this model. Normally, when we discuss anything about exception management, we say that, of course, it is in our language, we say that the exception is the try block throws an exception. That error, which we now will call it as an exception, is considered caught and handled in this model. So that is the very basic working of exception management. Second is code for handling enclosed in is enclosed in catch block. Normally, catch block does not contain much of the remedial code. The catch block will contain only the textual implementation of it. The keyword finally always executes with or without an error. Just like we have, I hope everybody is familiar with switch. So in switch, just like we have our default case which executes if no other cases are getting executed, likewise the finally always executes without an error. So this is how exception management is done. We will be discussing this exception management in brief along with code in our mini project. Okay. And the block in which exception occurs, XPath. That is the basic termination model of exception management. Now let us just start with JDBC or Java database connectivity. Now before we start with this Java database connectivity, there are various prerequisites, various terms which we need to discuss. There are various things which a novice needs to understand. But if you have a bit proficiency in programming. These terms are extremely simple. They are simply new, but they are not difficult. So let us just see what exactly we are dealing with Java database connectivity. Normally, short form is used JDBC, a standard Java API for database independent connectivity between the Java programming language and a wide range of databases. Basically, Java database connectivity acts as a bridge between your Java API and your databases. So, of course, we know that we have various different types of databases. We have RDBMS, we have, if we go by the name, then we have SQL Server, then we have MySQL, we have PostgreSQL, we have non-SQL databases like MongoDB and whatnot. Normally they have their own methods, normally they have their own library methods, they have their own working functionalities and principles. In Java there are various different ways through which we can access those libraries. We can give command, or we can generate an SQL query for execution of these databases APIs. So there is a bridge present between your Java API and database, and that bridge is known as JDBC. But to have a basic understanding of JDBC, there is some prerequisite required. The very first prerequisite required is you should have your SQL or MySQL or Postgres, whichever RDBMS. Preferably for this session, I am taking the example of only RDBMS. I'll not be taking file system. I'll not be taking MS Access. I'll not be taking MongoDB or no SQL databases of that sort. We will be focusing our discussion with RDBMS only. Installed and running RDBMS should be there on your system if you want to connect your database with Java API. Secondly, you should have JDK, JRE installed, of course. So you should have database on Java. So first, these two is quite common sense things. You should have IDE, NetBeans or Eclipse. Of course, I'll be suggesting NetBeans rather than Eclipse, because to bridge between the two, NetBeans have default libraries present with them. But for Eclipse, you have to download the connector mechanism. It is a simple jar file of, I think, very few, 100, 120, 150 KBs jar file is there. Sorry, zip file is there. You simply need to download and extract that zip file and integrate that in Eclipse. But you don't need to do anything if you are using NetBeans. It is already present in there. So I'll be suggesting a NetBeans IDE for your JD. Then you have a database connector. Of course, if your library is not supported, then aesthetic view towards UI development. Now that is the most important thing right now. If we go in current scenario, various different universities, various different projects basically work or basically emphasize most of them on UX UI development. The current marketing scenario is also based on UX UI development as well. It's been said that jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai. So for that, if you have an aesthetic sense towards your GUI development, if you know how to give maximum by using minimum, by showing minimum, so that sense is quite a bit required for your GUI development. Of course, it is completely optional, and a complete different team of UX UI development team can work on it. You simply need to be working on backend. And lastly, basic working knowledge of Java programming and database. Basic, I mean, you simply need to know how Java program works. You simply need to know what is system.out.println system. You simply need to know public static void main. That's it. At that level, basic working knowledge of Java is required. And what exactly is database? Why do we call it as a RDBMS? How to create a table, then how to insert into table, how to retrieve from table. That basic is required, nothing else. We don't require joining, we don't require any fancy stuff of database right now at this point. You simply need a working knowledge of databases. Now let us just see what exactly or how exactly database connectivity works. We know that the most of our development is based on data portion, that is in banks or in various different servers or in services. We are basically focused on data. So all the data is stored in various different databases. Normally we call it as a backend database. Most of our activities, most of our data, all transactional details are stored on your backend database. And everybody is not comfortable, or everybody is not efficient enough to work with those databases. So we have a front end present for them, wherein they can simply click some buttons, or they can simply write some 2 3 lines of code, or they can simply give commands in their familiar language, and the task gets done. So that portion is called as a front end. Normally GUI is covered in front end, and all the data is present in backend database. What exactly JDBC does is this: it bridges the gap between your front end and backend database. It is extremely simple. The process of bridging the gap is extremely simple, very convenient, and very least amount of coding is required. How that thing is done, we will be seeing. In JDBC, or normally which we call it as Java database connectivity, I have said that we will be focusing mainly on RDBMS because that is bit simpler. And I know that time is almost running. I have consumed my 40-45 minutes, so I need to finish faster. So I'll be focusing my time on RDBMS. No file structure, no MS Access, no big data Hadoop, and no MongoDB will be covered. Of course, Java provides a complete different library set to work on these as well. So it is not the case that Java has completely ignored this thing. Yes, these things can be implemented very efficiently by using Java as well. It's just that we are not doing it right now. A JDBC driver is a software component which enables a Java application to interact with a database. So Java can be, or JDBC can be understood as a driver. We know that if in previous days, if you want to implement a printer mechanism present over here, so that printer device used to come with a disk. We need to install that driver, and then through that driver, we were able to take the printout from your printer. So likewise, a JDBC is a driver or a software component, we can say, which enables your Java application or your API to interact with your database. You write commands in Java, they gets converted to your database libraries, and your database can be effectively implemented by using that. That is what JDBC driver does. Now there are various different 4 types of drivers. First is JDBC ODBC bridge. ODBC here stands for Open Database Connectivity. Just like Java database connectivity, we have Open Database Connectivity. Normally it is used in MS Access. Why it is used in MS Access? Because it is an open database. Anybody can use it. So it has its completely different architecture. It has completely different library set and a very different API. So we have a JDBC ODBC bridge present over there, wherein Java, what can I say, instructions are converted to open database instructions. So the driver's work is to convert Java's instruction to open database understandable format. The second type of driver is a native API driver. For example, let us just say I'm using MySQL, or I'm using an SQL server, or I'm using a Postgres. So every database has its native API. So what does this second type of driver, this is called as type 2 driver. What does this type 2 driver do? It converts your Java commands to native API commands. And that conversion process, that translation process is given by this second type of driver. The third type of driver is called as network protocol driver, or called as a middleware driver. It's not the case that we use a simple database or a single database at a time. It might be a case that we have to use various different databases for a simple single application. So in those cases, network protocol driver, wherein advanced work of native API, advanced work of second type driver, type 2 driver is implemented in network protocol driver. It is also called as a middleware driver. And last thing on which we are going to focus our discussion is database protocol driver, or we call it as a thin driver. It is completely Java driver. We don't need to basically think about what driver or what database API provides us. It is not at all our headache. We will simply be writing commands in Java, and then we will be implementing the bridge from Java's end. And all the commands of your database will be implementable by using Java only. This thin driver we are going to implement right now. Now the basic question is, normally when we learn programming, the services which language provides are discussed by a faculty member and so, but students have a very basic question in mind that, sir, yes, I know how conditions work, I know how loops work, I know how recursion work, but when to apply what and for what outcome I should apply what type of constructs. So if that wisdom is there, programming becomes extremely simple. Likewise, we have 4 different types of drivers. So which driver is to be implemented at what stage? Most of the times we use or thin driver. When thin driver is not implementable or thin driver is not at all scalable, we use type 3, that is network protocol driver. When you do not have type 3 and type 4 available, we use type 2 driver. That means if you cannot use network protocol driver and database or thinner driver, you use native API driver. And JDBC ODBC bridge was used to be in implementation when MS Access were used as a database. Currently speaking, MS Access database is not used as widely as right now. So JDBC ODBC bridge is in a way obsolete and not mostly used. So we will be discussing, of course, my discussion is not based on drivers. So let us just go to train driver and let us just start discussion. So there are 6 steps of connectivity. All those 6 steps of connectivity are given over here along with its code. It is extremely simple. Let us just take an example that let us just see. Let us just take a scenario in consideration where you have to call your friend to ask about the status of notes which he has taken from you. That means your friend has taken your notes for copying and he is not returning you. So you are calling him and asking him, boss, what happened with my notes and I want my notes back. So what will you do? It's very simple. You first go to your phone, you pick up your phone, then you check whether a network is present over there or not. Then you dial your friend's number who have taken notes from you, of course, then press a call button. After pressing a call button, the call will get established and you will be able to speak. But before you speak, of course, you will think what to speak, when to speak and how to speak. Then after thinking, when he picks up the phone and says hello, that means when connection is established, you ask your query, you speak, and he responds that yes, I'll be returning the notes by today, or I'll be returning your notes by Monday, whatever the answer is. You listen to that answer, you process it, you plan your next line of action along with that answer. Done. After your call, you just simply disconnect your call. It is a very simple process. On this process, on this theme, we work with JDBC or Java Database Connectivity. First, we import the packages. Now, which packages do we need to import? We simply need to import one package, mandatory package, that is java.sql. This is native SQL APIs package which we are going to implement. Other than that, you might require, not at all mandatory, but you might require some packages based on your GUI development. If you are using javax.swing, then you might be required to import javax.swing package and all. Then second step is you need to load and register the data. See, there are 2 steps involved in second step. First is to load and second is to register. Now load means what? Whatever API you are using, you have to select that API and add to your library. That is called as a load process. And to register means in your program, you have to write the complete driver's name. That is whichever driver you are using, that driver's name. For that, we have a method called for name. This for name method belongs to a class. So we write class.forName. Of course, it is a static method. That is the reason we are calling it by class name. So class.forName, and then you give complete that com.mysql. Whatever JDBC driver you have, all those things. Then third step is to establish a connection. How do we establish a connection? For establishing a connection, we have a connection interface present with us. Mind well, connection is an interface. It is not a class. So we cannot instantiate it objects on the own. But somebody has already created it and we want that connection present with us. So to get that connection, we use getConnection method. Correct. So what does getConnection method do? GetConnection method goes to the URL of your database, whichever database you are using, whichever is present, asks for its user ID and password, and it returns a connections object. So this getConnection method is not directly implementable. So driver manager class is also there. So driver manager.getConnection goes to access your URL, ID and password and returns a connection. That connection is stored, object of connection, of course. That object of connection is stored in connection con. Next step, we create a statement. Now, why do we need to create a statement? We need to create a statement to process a query. Correct. So we will be creating a statement. That simply means we will be creating a query. Correct. And after creating a query, we will be executing it. That will lead to our next step, that is execute the query. So to execute the query, we will simply implement a method execute query. As simple as that. But this execute query is not at all. Of course, this execute query, of course, I have this should be st.execute query, because statement will be there, object of statement, and execute query method we will be using for query processing. After this execute query finishes its task, it returns something. So normally, what does query do? Query updates your database, and what do you get in return? You get number of rows or changed number of rows. So whatever you get as a changed number of rows, that will be stored in RS. What is RS? RS is an object of result set. So RS has a functionality to implement the return or the returned value of execute query. So whatever execute query has performed and returned, we will be storing it to RS. And then we will be processing that RS by using rs.next. That means first line, rs.next, second line, rs.next, third line, and likewise line by line, we will be processing it. Normally, normal processing, we will be simply system.out.println, we will be using that method and we will be printing it. And lastly, after the completion, we will be closing the connection. So this is how, through these 6 steps, we will be going through your JDBC connectivity. Now, let us try a simple application. In this simple application, what we are going to do, we are going to create a database first in MySQL. We are going to create a table in it. After creating table, of course, we will be having 3 fields present in the table. First is for ID, second is for username, third is for password. After doing that, we will be inserting a simple dummy value for ID, a simple dummy value for username, and a simple dummy value for password. And then we will be creating a GUI with a submit button present over here. Of course, for these things, you require some aesthetic sense and all those things. So right now, I think we are lagging with the time. So I'll be doing in a bit hazy way. And after that, we will be creating a couple of more windows. That is, if login is successful, it should display another window that yes, login is successful. If login is unsuccessful, it will be showing another message that yes, technical error has occurred and not. So all those new windows or new GUIs has to be created, and a database containing sample tables has to be created, and all these 6 steps of connectivity, this process is to be followed. Correct? So let us just go through the code, how it exactly looks like. But before code, let us just go and create the database. Now to create a database, let me just go here. Let me just go full screen so that the code gets visible to everybody. Let us just go to this XAMPP control panel. I have my XAMPP control panel installed. In that XAMPP control panel, I have started my Apache service and MySQL service. Of course, I think you can see these green. That means these services are running with MySQL is running on port number 3306. Okay. So after that, I go to my local host, phpMyAdmin. Basically, simply type local host. So you will be getting a dashboard for your local host. Then we will be going to phpMyAdmin. In this phpMyAdmin, we will be creating a new database. Let us just click on this new database. A new. Let us create a new database. Database name by the name test2, and let us just give collision of its own. So database name test2 is done and it is created. So it takes a bit time to process the request, but yes, test2 database has been created. In this test2 database, I am creating a new table. So let us just create a new table by the name entry, having 3 columns. So let us just go and print it. So we are going here. With this, I have 3 fields present over here. So let us just go with 3 fields. My first field is ID, another is user name, and last is password. So I will be working with these three fields. My ID can be anything, so I'll be giving varchar of size 5. My username can be anything, so I'll be again giving varchar with value 15. My password can again be anything, so I'll be again giving the type as varchar with value 15. So rest default is none, coalition none, attributes none. One more thing I forgot. We need to make this ID as our primary key, so that from this ID we will be creating the complete tables. So what was the size given to it? I think it was given as 5. Okay, so we'll go with 5. So after this we will be saving this. So it is processing request now, it is saving. Okay, so this is my test 2 with this entry. So let us just see, ID has been created with a primary key, username has been created, password has been created, everything looks fine. Now let us just insert a dummy data in it. So let us just say my ID first value is 1. My dummy data says username, let us just pick as admin and admin, so no biggie, and then we will simply press on go. So what will it do? It will simply transfer one admin and admin. This is the query which gets generated, and the data has already been gone. So we'll just go to browse and let us just see whether data is there or not. Yes, the data is present over here. One ID is 1, username is 1, and password is also 1. So far so good. So we'll be closing this thing, and let us just see. I have a sample code written over here for everything. So just to make things easier, I'll not be writing a code. I'll be simply copying the code and I'll be pasting it over there. So it will reduce much of the time. So here we'll do garbage collection is done. So of course we have this test 2 already done. So okay, so we know how to create a project. We go on new project and all those things. So this new test 2 project has already been created in starting of this session. We will be working with this only. So we will not be interested in main program here or as well. So let us just go to source package, right click, new Java package. We will create a new Java package by the name login. Okay, so this login package has been generated. In this login package, I'll be using one JForm by the name again login. So this login form has been generated, JForm has been generated. In a login package, I'll be generating another JForm by the name success. So if my login window gets success, this form should be printed. It's extremely simple, no big deal. Now you simply need to drag and drop things. So in Java, we will be simply dragging this thing and dropping this thing. Let us just rename as a right click. Login form. So I want this to be in 18 size, whatever font you need to check or do, you can do it. So this is my login form. I'll go for another label, edit text. This is my user name. Then I'll go for another label. I'll paste it over here, right click, edit text, password. Then I will go for text field. I'll be putting it over here. I'll be making it quite big. I'll edit text to nothing. Then I will right click again, change variable name to user1. Okay, and then I'll take some password field. I'll just put it over here. I'll drag up to its size. I'll edit text to nothing. I will right click. Oh, what happened? Right click, change variable name to password. Okay, after that I'll take a button. I'll make this button a quite bigger one, so that, of course, again, all these things are not mandatory. You can change anything anytime. Submit, and I'll change variable name of this to sub. Okay, so this is my basic login form. Let us just save this and see how this looks like. Just run the file. This is how my login form looks like. The button is again clickable and all those things. So far so good. In success form, we will not be doing much of the things. I'll be simply creating this thing, right click, edit text. You are free to proceed. So no big thing is required with the size of 24. Okay, 24 is a bit too much. So with the size of 14 or 18, whatever is good. Okay, so this text will be there. So if I run this file, uh, you will be seeing output something like this. Now what we need to do, we simply need to start working on our database connectivity. Okay, so we have created a project, we have created packages, we have created JForm, we have created labels, buttons, text field, and all those things. Now let us just trace the complete process. So what is my first step? Import the package. We will be importing a package in our login form. What is my second step? In second step, you need to load and register driver. So we simply need to load the driver, correct? So from where we should load? We should load the drivers from here. We know our driver is done. So we will be going to test package, sorry, libraries. In libraries of this said, oh my god, we did something wrong. We created all these things in garbage collection. Okay, so we'll just do one thing. We will copy this. Where is our test2? This is our test2. In source package, we will be pasting it. So in our source package, we have login form and we have test2 class. Done. So in test2 we have this, we have login form, and we have this thing. So I don't want this, test2 login success. This is my login form and this is my, is it, this is my success form. Okay, so these are tools. Of course, let us just see how things work out now. So this is my login package, close. So in my login, when I go to this page, right click to library. What are we going to do? We are loading the library, correct? So let's add library. Okay, in this will give you a complete list of libraries we need to see for MySQL JDBC driver, and we simply need to add it. We have seen that if you are using an Eclipse, you need to download and implement the connector, but in NetBeans the library is already available. See, this library has been added, so we don't need to do anything much regarding it. Now let us go to services field. In services, go to databases, go for new connection. In new connection, we have to go for MySQL connector, J drive, and then we will go for next. Here my host is localhost, port number is 3306. Let us just check. Yes, my port number is 3306. And close. Then I have MySQL. This is my name of database. So what is the name of database? I think my name of database is test2. Done. So this is test2. Username is root, password is root. Let us just check the connection. So okay, so message is given, connection succeeded. So likewise next, and no schema, so next and finish. So see, there are various connections present. So this connection is established. Rest two connections are disabled for the time being. So this is my established connection. Done. So this is how I create a connection to my database. Now what I need to do is I simply need to go to my login form. The gaps between components can be selected. Okay, no issue. So I'll go to my login form and I go for source. Now in login form, let us just see where is my PPT here. What do we need to do? We simply need to import these two things. So I'll be simply copying the text. Apart from this, we will be importing these two things. Basically, we are importing SQL.star and importing Java swing package. Then we have a method called login. So it is basically a name of the class which or a name of the form which you are doing it. In this, we have created a form. So before we proceed, let us just go to step 2, load and register the driver. Now, in this login method, we will be simply creating these things. Just paste it here. So this is an object of connection interface. This is success. That means the form which we have used. Then this is an object of statement. It's extremely simple. We simply have created an object. Now let us go to login method. In login method, what we are going to do, I think I have a complete code present over here somewhere, which I was going to show you. Yes, something of this sort. So in login method, after initializing components, I'll be using a try-catch block. So I'll be simply pressing it. So what does this thing do? These set of statements are supposed to or have a tendency to give an error. So if they give an error, we will be fetching that error and we will be working on that error. So that is the reason we have written these set of statements in try block, and for that we have given a remedial measure. So let us just see. First thing, class dot, we are registering the driver. So class dot for name. So this thing, from where do we get this thing? We simply go to our driver, we go to properties, and this is my driver class. See, this is visible. So I'll simply copy it, close it, and I'll be pasting it. Then driver manager dot get connection. Here I need to paste URL. So from where do I need to take URL of it? Again, right click, properties, take the URL from this. So the URL is also visible over here. We don't need to give stress, unnecessary stress. So everything is present over here. You simply need to copy paste the things. So this is my URL. So proceeded with the root, which is the ID, and password we have not set to our database. So let us just go. Then this is j option print dot show message dialog. This is a show message dialog button which will show a simple dialog called connected. So let us just change this message. What is the name of our database? Test2. So database test2 connected. Save, and then we will be creating a statement. So this is how we register. So this is our step 2. Let us just check whether this thing works or not. Login form run file does not have a main method. So what is the error? It's a public void run. This is a new interface, and that is the reason it is not allowing it. Okay, no issues. For such things I have already created. I knew that these things are bound to happen. So I have created a login previously and the test. Simple. In this is my login form and this is my success form. So in login form, I have a source wherein I have implemented step 1 and implemented step 2 as well. That is, I have registered my database over here. After registration, what I need to do is I simply need to go to its design. I need to see whether things work out or not. I'll go to submit button. I'll go to events, action, and action perform. When I click on action perform, it gives or it diverts connections to my cursor to this sub action perform method. Sub is, I hope you know, variable name for my action button. So sub action perform method is given. In that, we will be implementing our next steps. And what are our next steps? Extremely simple. Next step is, where is it? We have done our first step, import, second step, load register, and third step is establishing a connection. So let us just establish a connection. How do we establish a connection? By, of course, we have already established by using these services. So in next, we will be creating a statement. So how do we create a statement? We will be creating a simple string in which it contains select star from student. Now here it is database name. This student, I will show you right over here. This is my database with a table name called entry. And there are two things present over here. First is admin, second is add. So username, password, admin, username, password, add. This is table name entry. Uh, Database name is test. So from student, STUD, table name is, I think, entry. Okay. Where username is equal to user1. First, I need to establish connection with this. So I will be connecting this. Okay. Load connection. I will be disconnecting it because that was not working. And this is my user DB. Done. So STUD, because my database is, I think, user DB. Yes, this is my database which I have used, and stud is my table name. Again, this stud will contain only one entry, admin. Done. After that, I create a result set which will be executing a query, and on success, I'll be showing your success ka J panel, J option panel. And if something goes wrong, I'll be going to exception and I'll be speaking something about take error. So how does things look like? Let us just see. I will simply run this file. This will be first showing that your database is connected. That means a connection is established. So see, the connection established message is there. After connection establishment, I'll be passing some user ID and password. Of course, I have seen that aesthetic value is important. I have not yet designed it by using those aesthetic senses. So, but simply admin and admin. This is my ID and password. If I log in, it gives me a message, thou shalt pass. But if I provide some various different, that is different username and different password which are not there, let us just say ABCD and ABCDEF. So it will be giving me invalid login message. Done. So likewise, the database has been created, connection has been established, the data from database has been fetched, and accordingly a statement is executed. So this is how a simple application can be developed or generated to implement your complete mini project. So this is how normally we work with Java. So most of these cases are, most of these classes, interfaces are already there. We simply need to just call it and use their own methods. So this was the set of execution which we preferred. Then lastly, we close the connection, and this is the complete code which looks like this. And let us just come to the last portion of it, when to use Java. We can use Java for standalone applications. We know various applications like compressors, or for some various other calculators also, we can use Java standalone application. The Java is most preferred for web-based applications for its platform independency. For enterprise application like distributed applications or multi-threaded applications, we can use them. For mobile applications right now, for Android development as well, Java is used. Basically speaking, the sky is limit. So you can use Java anytime, anywhere you want. So with this, we have come to the end of our webinar. If you have any questions, any doubts, then you can very well contact me on this channel as well. And these videos will be available for later use also. So without wasting much time, we will take a break for 15 minutes, and then the next session of webinar will be conducted. So thank you very much for patiently listening. And now I will be taking your leave. Thank you.